Hello! I'm going to take one more whack at that dead horse about Kirchhoff's voltage law and changing magnetic fields, because I'm going to show, through analyzing yet another video about this, that if you understand the basic principles of electronics and understand how things work, you can make accurate predictions and understand how circuits work. So a little bit of a recap. I can't go over everything because it's way too much, but I'll link in the description below some videos that can lead up to this if you need to see them. But Silicon Soup made a video where he took a toroidal coil, which if we draw this in an oblique angle, we have a ferrite core that's shaped like a donut, and we have wires wrapped around that. And we're looking at this edge on now. So we have our toroidal coil, and there's the hole through the middle, and our wires are wrapped around this way and that way. And he put a loop of wire through there and made some measurements and showed that, well, that there's no voltage gradient from here to here or from here to here, which I expected to see when we looked at the same thing using an open coil. So there is our coil. We're looking down on it, so our wires are wound around this way. We have an open loop of wire, and we will see a voltage gradient. So if it's positive on this side, we'll see our highest positive voltage, and the voltage will get lower and lower and lower as we get down to this end, which will have our smallest voltage, or we could call that positive and negative. So we expect a voltage gradient. Higher voltage down to lower voltage this way. But using a toroidal transformer, we did not see that. And so I double-checked that, did my own experiments, which I made a video about, which I'll link in the description below for those of you who have not come here from that direction. And I confirmed using an oscilloscope that if we measure anywhere along here, any 2 points, we get 0 volts, which means there's no voltage gradient along there. But yet I have some voltage. If I put my oscilloscope, which of course is a type of voltmeter here, I will get some voltage, whatever it is. But if I measure along here, I get no voltage. Where if I do the same thing along here, I do get some voltage from point to point because we have that voltage gradient around it. And after carefully examining it, I found that it appears that the only EMF, the only voltage gradient we're going to have is going to be, and I'll put the symbol for EMF in there, that little cursive E, only exists inside the toroid itself. Now, this isn't some harebrained theory I've come up with. This is just a matter of fact that that's the way it acts. Just like when I talk about a capacitor, I say it acts like you can stuff electrons in there and it acts like a compressed air tank. Is it? No. A capacitor works by storing energy in an electric field. It doesn't store it as compressed electricity per se. Or when I say that a battery acts like a pump, pumping electricity around the circuit. Does it really do that? No, but for all intents and purposes, you can treat it that way. So I don't know for sure what is going on here, and I'm trying to find out. I cannot find any literature that explains this in any kind of detail, but it acts as if the only EMF is inside there. Therefore, unlike the coil that is open, once again, there's our coil of wire looking down at it, we have EMF all around the circle. And of course, if we break the loop, then we can actually measure that with a voltmeter. But here, it appears that the EMF is only inside the toroid. Now, I've been trying to find something that really explains what's going on there, and I haven't found much yet. I'm sure that there must be a treatise on electromagnetics somewhere that explains what's going on and can tell me why it appears what it is. But I did find in Wikipedia they show a cut open toroid. Here's your ferrite in there, and we're looking at it being cut. So we're only seeing half of the donut. And they show the electric field rightfully like this, and around the other way. And one electric field line going right down the middle, and they say that the EMF is parallel to this line. Well, that may explain something. Another thing I noticed is that we have the E field out here. And if we look at a long inductor, that we have a magnetic field that looks the same as the E field. So that's the B field, if I understand things correctly. I'm sure if I don't, someone's going to correct me in the comments. But the B field, or the magnetic field in a long inductor, is going to have the same shape as the electric field, or the E field, in the toroidal inductor. And another thing that gives me a clue is that inside the inductor we have a strong magnetic field, but outside it's spread out so much that it's essentially zero. So we don't have any measurable magnetic field outside of a long inductor. Well, here we have the E field looking the same. Could that tell us that we don't have any measurable E field outside the toroidal inductor? Maybe I'm on the right track here, but I can't find anything documented to tell me what's really going on here. But it acts as if the only place we have the E field is somewhere right in there. So that's the point I want to make before I go on to Inverted Reality's video. So he sets up a similar experiment, but his is more like Walter Lewin's because he actually put the resistors in there. So take a quick look back at Walter Lewin's setup, which actually goes back to a paper by Robert Romer. But we have a inductor, we're looking down on it, so our wires are wound around this way. We have around that a circuit with some resistors, and we're measuring with some voltmeters, could be oscilloscopes out here. I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I've beat this horse to death. And Robert Romer did some calculations and found that these two voltmeters should not read the same, even though they're connected to the same point in the circuit. And my point is that, well, yeah, that's not surprising because any engineer would look at this right away and see, well, your measuring loop is affected by the magnetic field as well as this loop here. So we have current flowing here and current attempting to flow here, but of course the voltmeters are very high impedance. So the total EMF is going to be divided between the two oscilloscopes plus the voltage that is between the two resistors, and therefore you get two different readings. Of course, we are assuming that these are different, 900K, 1K, or whatever those resistors are. So anyway, back to Inverted Reality's setup.